Class we were talking about spontaneity. We discussed various conditions where a process can be spontaneous, right? Or the favorable conditions we could define for a particular process to be spontaneous. Now, how these things are significant for us in various other areas of chemistry. For example, I'll be taking one case of metallurgy. We'll be dealing with metallurgy later on in a separate chapter, but here I'd like to discuss one particular principle. Okay, and that is principle for pyrometallurgy. Means how with the help of heat or how with the help of some reducing agent we could extract metal from its metal oxide. Okay, so I'll be starting with a particular example of magnesium and aluminum oxide. Let's say here I write these two reactions for formation of magnesium oxide and aluminum oxide, which are here magnesium solid plus half O2 giving you magnesium oxide. Here I can write as gas. Okay, or let's say I clear this part. Gas giving you magnesium oxide solid. Now, as lattice energy of magnesium oxide, it will be very high, so it will remain in solid state, right? I can write delta H for this process, that is negative. Now this enthalpy, it depends upon various factors which we discussed yesterday, such as enthalpy of atomization, ionization enthalpy of the metal, as well as lattice energy or lattice enthalpy. These different type of enthalpies I'll be discussing very soon, as I will start thermochemistry today. Okay, so at that time we will be discussing that part. So this delta H depends upon those factors, right? Now we will be discussing those factors as well. Now at the same time, if I write aluminium solid or 2Al solid plus 3/2 O2 gas, I write Al2O3 solid. Again delta H I can write as a negative value, right? Now here what can I write for delta S for both of the processes? Delta S here, that is coming out to be negative. Here delta S, that is coming out to be negative itself, right? I suppose there will be no confusion defining delta H and delta S for these two processes. Okay, now let's say I put this Gibbs free energy versus entropy on this graph. Let's say I take here temperature versus Gibbs free energy. If I write for Al2O3 delta H for both of them, that will be negative. I can easily plot this straight line, right, which will be coming out to be in this manner. This is for aluminium plus oxygen giving you Al2O3. This is Gibbs free energy formation for Al2O3. At the same time, if I try to write for magnesium oxide, I'll write this is for magnesium plus oxygen giving you MgO. Here few things we are going to discuss, such as the favorable conditions or reducing nature of different elements, I have taken only these two metals. With the help of these two, I will try to define various other reducing agents. Before moving on towards that part, I would like to take one particular point here. This temperature or this point where this sharp change in the slope of the straight line comes, the slope of the straight line, it changes. It was supposed to move in this manner, it changes like this. Okay, now why it happens, that we need to discuss. So for that, I will take this particular example. See, for magnesium, the boiling point, this is an alkaline earth metal. So what I can write, the boiling point of this alkaline earth metal, that will be quite low in comparison to that of aluminium. So here this I can write as T naught B, or boiling point of magnesium. So after this point, we say that already the slope for magnesium was less steeper, but now as soon as this will reach the boiling point of magnesium, now what will happen, this solid magnesium, it will get converted into gas. So more negative delta S will be, more negative value of delta S, more positive will be the value of slope. Isn't that right? So the slope, it will become steeper. So basically this is boiling point of magnesium, this point which I have defined here. Any confusion, any doubt up to here? I suppose this part, is it it is clear for everyone? Correct. Now let's I'll just clean this boiling part thing. Okay, now you have understood that this point, it is boiling point of magnesium, right? Now I want to talk about this temperature. Let's say I call it as T A or TB, or any temperature. I will just denote it by T. Okay, now below this temperature, if I look any temperature below this TA, just look at any temperature. Let's say I take this temperature, or I take this temperature. The delta G formation, I can write it as an statement that below TA Gibbs free energy change for formation of magnesium oxide is more negative than Gibbs free energy formation for Al2O3. Say yes or no. Correct, that we can see clearly from the graph. Isn't that right? Any temperature you take, let's say I take this temperature, then Gibbs free energy formation, it will be coming out to be this for Al2O3, while for that of magnesium oxide, it will be coming out to be this, which is more negative, right? So if Gibbs free energy formation for magnesium oxide is more negative, which means I can write here, thus formation of magnesium oxide is more favorable than that of aluminium oxide. Isn't that right? Correct, means below that temperature, formation of magnesium oxide, it will be more favorable than that of aluminium oxide. Isn't up to this point everything is clear? Now at TA we say that formation of magnesium oxide and aluminum oxide are equally favorable, correct? While beyond Ta, let's take any temperature this. If I take any temperature this, Gibbs free energy formation for aluminum oxide, it will become more negative in comparison to Gibbs free energy formation for this magnesium oxide. Isn't that right? Any confusion, any doubt? Which means beyond this temperature or above Ta, formation of alumina or aluminum oxide, that will be more favorable in comparison to formation of magnesium oxide. Up to here, any doubt, any confusion? Correct? Okay. So now I'll take this particular case. Different cases I will be taking. Just try to remember this diagram. Okay. So here I take case 1. These cases I'll take below Ta. Let's say case 1 I take temperature below Ta. Okay, and I have taken one container. In which what I have placed? I have placed magnesium, aluminium, and sufficient amount of, allow for this account also, 1 second. Okay, so I have taken this one container in which I have taken magnesium, aluminium, and sufficient amount of oxygen. Sufficient means oxygen will be limiting. Not sufficient means not sufficient for both of them. Sufficient so that oxygen, it can react with only one of the element completely, or we say that limited supply of oxygen is there. Means if I am taking 1 mole of magnesium, 1 mole of aluminium, let's say 0.2 or 0.3 or 0.4 moles of oxygen I have taken. So limited supply of oxygen I have taken. Now in this case, what will happen? Oxygen, it will be completely consumed. It will react with either aluminium or it will react with magnesium. Let's say powdered magnesium, powdered aluminium, and oxygen we have taken. So one of them, it will react with oxygen completely. Question number 1. What species will be present in container after some time? What species will be present in the container after some time? That we have to figure out. This is question number 1. So we know that below temperature Ta, we have learned that Gibbs free energy for formation of magnesium oxide is more negative. Means formation of magnesium oxide will be more favored in comparison to that of aluminum oxide. So we can directly write that magnesium, it will react with sufficient amount of oxygen to give you magnesium oxide. Is that correct? So after some time we will have, if sufficient oxygen for magnesium is taken, then MgO and aluminium will be there. Isn't that right? No reaction of oxygen with aluminium will be there, even though Gibbs free energy for formation of aluminium is more negative, is also negative, but still the one which is more favored, that will form first. Is that clear? Until and unless the whole magnesium is converted into magnesium oxide and still oxygen is present in the container, no aluminium will react with oxygen. If further more oxygen is present, then formation of aluminum oxide will start. Till then no aluminum oxide will be formed. Is that clear? Remember in 9th standard you have gone through corrosion or some prevention from rusting and prevention from rust you have gone through. There you used to tie the foundation or the iron bar with the help of magnesium ribbons or zinc wires, so that first magnesium it will react with the oxygen, means it will get corrode, no corrosion of iron will be there. Correct? Any confusion, any doubt up to this particular part? This is first part of case 1. Correct? Now let's take second part, where I have taken again in this container I am taking magnesium oxide and aluminium. Now in this part we are trying to figure out, again temperature is below TA only. In this part we are trying to figure out whether this aluminium will be able to reduce this magnesium. So I could write that if aluminium is able to reduce magnesium, this kind of reaction it should be followed. Now we have to figure out whether this is feasible or not, whether this process it will be spontaneous or not. Now for that, what I can do, I could calculate delta G naught R, Gibbs free energy change for this reaction I can calculate. So here I could write solid, solid, solid and solid. Now again in thermochemistry we will learn that enthalpy of formation or Gibbs free energy change for elemental state, that will be considered as 0. Now delta GR I could write delta G naught R, I could write Gibbs free energy change or simply Gibbs free energy of product minus Gibbs free energy change for reactant, or I can write it as Gibbs free energy change for magnesium plus Gibbs free energy change for Al2O3 minus Gibbs free energy change for aluminium plus Gibbs free energy change for magnesium oxide, that I can write. Now for elemental state it will be coming out to be 0. Correct? So this Gibbs free energy change I can write as Gibbs free energy change for formation of Al2O3 minus Gibbs free energy change for formation of magnesium oxide. Can I write in this manner? Any confusion, any doubt? Correct only? Okay. So here let's say this is some value x, this is some value x and this is some value y. We know that below temperature T, this value it will be more negative in comparison to this one. Yes or no? I'll just take some random values. So let's say at that given temperature, at temperature T, Gibbs free energy formation for Al2O3, let's say minus 100 units. I write, and that of Gibbs free energy formation for magnesium oxide, it will be further more negative, let's say minus 120 units. Okay, so this delta G naught R I can write, which was what? Gibbs free energy formation for Al2O3 minus Gibbs free energy formation for magnesium oxide. These are hypothetical values I have taken. Hypothetical values. How I have taken these hypothetical values? With the help of this curve below temperature TA, at any temperature, let's say I take this minus 100 minus 120, like that. Okay, so this delta Gr, that will be coming out to be what? Gibbs free energy for formation of Al2O3 minus 100 units, I can write. Gibbs free energy change for formation of magnesium oxide minus 120 units, I can write. That will be coming out to be plus 20 units or not. So I can write Gibbs free energy change for the reaction, that is coming out to be greater than 0. If delta G is positive, means if it is greater than 0, that means process will be non-spontaneous. Isn't that right? The process, it will be non-spontaneous, which means I can write that is aluminium below temperature TA cannot reduce magnesium oxide. Means if I put aluminium and magnesium oxide in this container, if I subject both of them to this container below temperature TA, then aluminium won't be able to reduce magnesium oxide, means this product, it won't form. Is that clear? So I can write this won't happen. Is that clear to everyone or not? Which part you don't understand, Ashish Kumar?
Sir.
Huh.
Sir, beginning, sir. Sir, class late join.
Okay. So, beta, what we are trying to say here? See, I'll just give you.
Sir, graph भी नहीं clear है.
Okay. I'll just clear it from beginning. Okay. See, I have done. I have taken two processes. Basically, I want to understand what kind of species can act as a reducing agent for a particular metal oxide. In metallurgy, that's our motto, no? We want to extract metal from its ore, right? So for pyrometallurgy, means wherever heat is involved, I would like to use this principle of thermodynamics. Okay, this kind of diagram, it is called as Ellingham diagram. Okay, I will take this Ellingham diagram for various different other species. Right now I am just starting with magnesium and aluminium, or formation of magnesium oxide or aluminium oxide. See, this process, delta H will be negative, that we have figured out in last class. This negative value or magnitude of this delta H, it will depend upon various factors such as enthalpy of atomization, ionization enthalpy, and lattice enthalpy, etc. Correct? So that part we can define. Again, how we are going to define, when I will discuss thermochemistry, this picture, it will be further more clear. Okay. Now, right now I am just saying that this is negative value, that I know, or we can find out it very easily. Delta S value, that is coming out to be negative, that also we can define. You can look at the reactions here. Half mole of gas, 0 mole of gas, 3/2 moles of gas, 0 moles of gas. So delta S, it will be negative, so slope of the line, it will be coming out to be positive. Then I discussed that for formation of magnesium oxide, what kind of curve will be there? First, it was straight line like this, less steeper slope, then slope, it will become more steeper. Why? Because this temperature I defined as the boiling point of magnesium. So if it becomes if it comes in gaseous state, in that case what will happen? 3/2 moles of gas, 0 moles of gas. Delta S, it will become further more negative. If it become further more negative, slope of the line, it will become further more positive. So slope, it will become steeper. Correct?
Yes, sir.
Now what we defined, this TA. TA is what? Temperature at which Gibbs free energy formation for both aluminum oxide and magnesium oxide, they will become same. Okay. Now
Yes, sir.
we are trying to define everything for below this temperature TA. Then we can define for TA, and then we will try to define it for temperature above TA. Now let's say case 1 I am taking below temperature TA. Gibbs free energy of formation of magnesium oxide. This blue color line represent Gibbs free energy change for formation of magnesium oxide, and red color line, it define this Al2O3, right? So below this temperature you observe any temperature you take, let's say you take this temperature or you take this temperature, at this temperature Gibbs free energy formation for aluminum oxide and magnesium oxide, which one is more negative? Magnesium oxide, blue color line.
Magnesium oxide.
Magnesium oxide is more negative in comparison to that of aluminum oxide, correct?
Yes, sir.
So what we can say, one statement I will give, formation of magnesium oxide is more favorable than that of aluminum oxide below temperature TA, yes or no?
Yes, sir.
Till here everything is clear? No
Yes,
doubt,
sir.
I guess. Okay,
Yeah.
let's move on to next page. Now case 1 I have taken temperature below TA. Here different conditions I am going to take, or different cases, again sub cases I will be taking. First case, I have taken that I have taken this container, and in that container magnesium, aluminum and oxygen are subjected. Okay, limited amount of oxygen I am taking. So we know that metals have tendency to combine with oxygen, both aluminum and magnesium. See, if only aluminum and only aluminum and oxygen was there, what will be the product? Aluminum oxide will form. From this curve we can say yes or no, because Gibbs free energy formation for aluminum oxide, that is negative, correct? So if
Yes,
only aluminum and oxygen were there in the container, no only formation of aluminum oxide will be there. If only magnesium and oxygen are there, then formation of magnesium oxide will be there. But here we are saying that simultaneously we have taken magnesium, aluminum and oxygen. Simultaneously we have taken magnesium, aluminum and oxygen. So what will happen? We are going to figure out that. See, as we know that formation of magnesium oxide below this temperature TA is more favorable. So first magnesium oxide will form, no formation of aluminum oxide will be there. Is that clear? Until and unless the whole magnesium is converted into magnesium oxide, no formation of aluminum oxide will be there. Aluminum, it will remain unchanged, it will remain unaffected. Is that clear?
सर वाई कुछ तो रीजन होगा.
रीजन अरे रीजन ही तो बताया है यहाँ पे ही, और क्या बताया? फॉर्मेशन ऑफ मैग्नीशियम ऑक्साइड is more favorable than that of aluminum oxide.
अच्छा.
See,
Yes, sir. Yes.
let's understand it in this way. You and your younger brother are there, okay, and there is only one chocolate. Who will eat that chocolate? Don't say out of love I will give that chocolate to my brother.
Sir,
The one
वो
who
तो
is
बड़ा
more
भाई
powerful,
लेगा.
the one who has more tendency to eat that chocolate. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So you are going to eat that chocolate, not your younger brother. At the same time, if another elder brother comes, then that fellow is going to eat chocolate instead of you too.
Yes, sir.
Is that correct or not? So
Yes, sir. Correct.
both of you are not going to have that oxygen. The one which has more Gibbs free energy, more negative Gibbs free energy change, that is going to combine with oxygen. That's what we are saying here. Is that clear?
Yes,
So
sir.
only
Clear.
formation of magnesium oxide will be there, aluminum oxide will not form. Simple as that. Okay. Now next case I take, if I have subjected magnesium oxide and aluminum in one container. Now I want to figure out whether this aluminum will be able to reduce magnesium oxide or not. So if aluminum reduce magnesium oxide, this kind of reaction, hypothetically we can say that this kind of reaction should occur if aluminum is going to reduce magnesium oxide, then formation of aluminum oxide should be there and formation of pure magnesium should be there, hypothetically speaking, if it happens, correct? And we have to figure out whether that if is right or not, means whether it will happen or not, that we want to know,
No. Yes, sir.
correct? So
Yes, sir.
for that I'll check for Gibbs free energy change for this reaction. If for this process delta G comes out to be negative value, then this reaction will occur, and if it comes out to be positive, then this reaction or this process, it will become non-spontaneous,
No, not spontaneous.
correct? So
Yes,
delta
sir.
G reaction is what? Delta G of product minus delta G of reactant. Same thing we write for delta H, same thing we write for delta S also. Correct? So
Yes, sir.
delta G product, these two are products. So that I can write as delta G naught Mg plus delta G of aluminum oxide minus reactant. Reactants are aluminum and magnesium oxide. Correct? And we are writing Gibbs free energy formation for elemental state, that will be 0. So for Gibbs free energy formation for magnesium and aluminum, it will be coming out to be 0. So delta Gr, it will come out to be Gibbs free energy formation of Al2O3 minus Gibbs free energy formation for standard Gibbs free energy change for formation of magnesium oxide. That's correct. Now here hypothetical values I have taken, that below temperature Ta, at any temperature, delta G formation for Al2O3, if I am writing, it has 100 units, minus of 100 units, and delta G formation for magnesium oxide I am taking, let's say, minus 120 units. That you can define from this graph. Let's say at this temperature, let's say this is minus 100 on y-axis, this value is minus 100, then this value, this will be minus 90 or minus 110, whether this value it will be minus 90 or minus 110. बेटा बताओ ये वैल्यू
Sir,
कितना
क्या?
होगा? आई एम सेइंग दैट if this value is minus 100, then this value will be what? Minus 90 or minus 110?
110.
वही होगा ना?
Yes, sir.
That's what we are saying, that formation of magnesium oxide is more negative. Correct? So if I put
Yes, sir.
hypothetically, I can use these values. Correct? So if I put these values here in this expression, delta G of formation of Al2O3, let's say minus 100, delta G of formation of magnesium oxide minus 120, overall delta G naught R, it comes out to be plus 20. Plus 20 means greater than 0. Process will be non-spontaneous. That means aluminium below that Ta, which we defined initially, it cannot reduce magnesium oxide. Is that clear?
Yes, sir. Clear.
Now anyone else having any kind of doubt?
No, sir. Clear.
Clear?
Thank you,
है? Okay. Now I'll take one more case for this case 1. Here we have taken magnesium oxide and aluminium. Now I will take aluminum oxide and magnesium, and I will try to figure out whether magnesium will be able to reduce aluminum oxide or not. Okay, I'll give you 30 seconds, try to figure out. Here I take one more case, sub case 3. Here in this container I am taking magnesium and aluminum oxide. Okay, you have to figure out that temperature below Ta, what will happen if I subject magnesium and aluminum oxide to that container, whether magnesium will be able to reduce aluminum oxide or not. That you have to figure out. You have 30 seconds, your time starts now. Are you getting the answer? See, again, let's say hypothetically I assume that magnesium plus Al2O3 delta G naught R again I write. It gives you magnesium oxide plus aluminum. Okay, solid and solid. Okay, so here if I want to write delta G naught R, I can write Gibbs free energy change for magnesium, it will be 0, and that for aluminum, that will also be 0. So delta G naught R I can write directly as Gibbs free energy formation of magnesium oxide minus Gibbs free energy formation for Al2O3. That we can write those hypothetical values which I have taken. Gibbs free energy change for magnesium oxide minus 120 units minus 100 units. That comes out to be minus 20 units. Yes or no? So delta G naught R below temperature TA, that is coming out to be less than 0, or it is coming out to be negative value. That means what we can say, below temperature TA, magnesium will be able to reduce aluminum oxide to aluminum, and magnesium it will get converted into magnesium oxide. Any confusion, any doubt in this particular part? Is that clear to everyone? Now I am going to use this expression or use this particular concept to define a particular thermodynamic process or particular metallurgical process here. Okay, before that I could take one more case, case 2. Above this temperature TA, what will happen, that if I take magnesium and aluminum oxide in one container, whether magnesium will be able to reduce the aluminum oxide, the answer will be no. And if I take magnesium oxide and aluminum in one container, whether aluminum will be able to reduce magnesium oxide, the answer will be yes. This will be your homework. You will try to do this by yourself. Is it clear to everyone? Okay. Okay, so now I have only taken these two metals. Now I will try to take number of different metals and try to define this Gibbs free energy formation. With the help of this Gibbs free energy formation, I will try to define which metal will be able to reduce other metal oxide. Right now here what we have discussed, reduction of metal oxide with the help of another metal. Okay, now this, before starting this, here this delta H naught value it depends upon what factor? It depends upon lattice energy as well as electropositive nature of metal, as well as boiling point or this enthalpy of atomization of metal. So the metal which have less enthalpy of atomization, means which have lower boiling point, melting point, will have more negative delta H. The metals which have lesser value of ionization enthalpy, they will have more negative value of delta H. The metals which have higher lattice enthalpy will have more negative value of delta H. Is that correct? So using this concept, I will try to write this Ellingham diagram for various different metals. Okay, so here let's say I write delta G versus temperature. Okay, now I start with the Ag2O silver oxide, like that. Ag2O silver oxide, Cu2O, mercury oxide also I can take here, Hg2O or HgO, right? Now their delta G formation, it will become positive at lower temperature itself, so they can go for auto reduction processes. Okay, so for mercury and copper and also for lead you can use auto reduction process. Is that clear? That is one of the part, and these are not important for us for time being. So I'll take another metals. Let's say I take iron oxide. Now if I take formation of iron oxide, when I'm writing FeO means this is basically Fe plus O2 giving you FeO. Okay, formation of iron oxide. Clear? Then I take formation of zinc oxide. This temperature I can write here as 905 degrees centigrade, which is boiling point of zinc. Okay, you don't have to remember, but if you remember these kind of points, that will be very helpful in inorganic chemistry also, right? Similarly I can write for that of chromium oxide or manganese oxide, Cr2O3 or CrO or CrO3, and MnO or MnO2 or Mn3O4, like that. Clear? And then I take this aluminum oxide here in this manner. This is for Al2O3, formation of Al2O3, and then I take magnesium oxide. In this manner. Below this temperature, formation of delta G, formation for magnesium oxide will be least, or it will be most negative among all these metals. Yes or no? And then I can take other alkali metals in this manner, such as let's say I take calcium oxide, potassium oxide, etc. Is that clear? So these lines or this diagram, is it clear to everyone? Any confusion or any doubt you can ask, so that we can move on to the next part.
ये ग्राफ मतलब साइंटिस्ट के द्वारा बना है
हाँ,
कि आप अपने द्वारा बना रहे हैं?
देखो, अपने द्वारा भी बना सकते हो और फैक्ट्स से भी बना सकते हो. You can do the experiments, no?
यस सर.
Okay, delta G.
मतलब ये एक्सपेरिमेंटली प्रूफ है.
Experimentally as well as mathematically you can define, no? Delta G is equals to delta H minus T delta S, straight lines. Last class I discussed, no?
Yes sir, last class.
Huh?
Yes sir, आप last
class I discussed that part, no? Okay.
Yes sir.
So here, see, aluminium, calcium and potassium, they are being costly. So we are not going to, basically when you are trying to reduce, let's say here I take M1 plus MO giving you M plus M1O, or better I will try to write them as M dash O. Means with the help of some metal you are trying to reduce another metal oxide to obtain that particular metal. So basically what you are doing, you are sacrificing this M dash, yes or no? Is that correct? Basically we are sacrificing that M dash in order to obtain M. Means if I want to extract aluminium by reducing it with the help of magnesium, so reaction will be what? Al2O3 plus Mg giving you MgO plus aluminium. So basically you have sacrificed magnesium, correct or not? So that will be a costly method, because magnesium it will be further more costly in comparison to aluminium, let's say, or manufacturing of magnesium is more difficult in comparison to that of aluminium. I cannot do that. but sometime we can use this process where instantaneously we have to produce some metal oxide, or where no other process can help us. For example, Goldsmith aluminothermite process. I'll just write the name here. Goldsmith aluminothermite. You might have heard this name, thermite process. It is basically used for extraction of chromium, manganese mainly, because of their crystal structures. So you cannot reduce chromium and manganese oxide with the help of simple carbon. For iron and zinc you can use carbon. That I will discuss, that will be the next part. Okay, so for chromium, for extraction of chromium and manganese. Now chromium and manganese, pay attention. With the help of which metal I can reduce chromium oxide and manganese oxide? These are chromium oxide, these are manganese oxide. With the help of which metal I should use? Can I use iron? No. Formation of iron oxide, it will always be less spontaneous in comparison to formation of chromium or manganese oxide. I cannot use iron. Can I use zinc? No, I cannot use zinc as well. But can I use aluminium? Yes. Can I use magnesium? Yes. Can I use calcium, potassium? Yes, I can use them. Is that clear? So this is Goldsmith aluminothermite process. I'll take that Goldsmith aluminothermite process very shortly. Now I can even reduce iron, zinc, chromium, manganese oxide with the help of aluminium. All these oxides, they can be reduced with the help of aluminium. Yes or no? So in Goldsmith aluminothermite process, one more significance of this Goldsmith aluminothermite process is filling the railway tracks. When there is a crack in railway track, let's say in this manner, there is let's say this railway track is there, and if some crack comes in this railway track, we have to make this railway track lithogenous, means it should be uniform. You cannot do welding. So what we do, we have to pour molten iron in those cracks, so that those cracks can be filled with the help of iron. How, why? Let's understand with the help of this Goldsmith aluminothermite process. Sometimes it is also called as thermite process only. Is that clear? So I'll take one example of aluminothermite process, and then we will move on towards reduction with the help of carbon. Okay, so here I take the assembling of this aluminothermite process. There is this container, okay, where basically this is the container where this process it will take place. Let's say I go for this reduction of chromium oxide. I'll write CrO or Cr2O3 or CrO3 plus aluminium. It will give me Al2O3 plus chromium, pure chromium, and Gibbs free energy, that will be a huge negative value. Process is, I'll write, process is highly exothermic, or we can say enormous amount of heat will be released, that enormous amount of heat, it will, what it will do, it will melt the metal. So the metal obtained is in liquid state. Up to here I suppose there is no doubt. Okay, now let's understand this assembling. So here I will fill this container with the reaction mixture. this is reaction mixture. I will just call this as reaction mixture. Now there a layer of barium peroxide or sometimes superoxide is placed, which will initiate. This is a ignition mixture. Okay, this barium peroxide or superoxide, it will act as ignition mixture, means we have to start the reaction. See, thermodynamics, it just tell us whether the process will happen or not. That's what thermodynamics will tell us. Like we know that methane and oxygen, they will react with each other spontaneously, but if you don't ignite that methane, or if you don't initiate the reaction, it might take million years. We don't want that reaction to be that slow. Okay, so this ignition mixture, this part I will call here, this is called as ignition mixture, correct? And it is embedded with this magnesium ribbon. I'll just write here magnesium ribbon. We just put fire on this magnesium ribbon so that it will initiate the process. Is that clear? So this reaction, it will start, and what will be the end product? This will be the end product. And molten metal, here you can apply tab, we can write molten metal, it can be obtained. Molten pure metal, it can be obtained. In this case, it will be chromium. So now here you can fill these cracks in railway track with the help of this particular process, that this molten iron, it can be poured on those cracks and they can be filled again. Is that clear? Any confusion? Now here I will put one star mark and write. See, first thing, the Chi4 of manganese is what? Pyroxide, which is MnO2, black powdered kind of thing. In dry cells you might have seen pyroxide. In dry cell we fill pyroxide. In electrochemistry again I will discuss that part. Try to remember this particular part. What is Chi4 of manganese? Will you remember? That is pyroxide, MnO2. Okay. Now second important point, I will write, in thermite process for extraction of manganese, we should not use pyroxide directly, as it will be highly explosive reaction of pyroxide with aluminium. So this reaction, it will be explosive, it might blast. Okay, so instead of pyroxide, what we do, we first convert MnO2 with the help of heating or with the help of charcoal. We first convert it into Mn3O4 first. Then this Mn3O4, it is subjected to thermite process, is subjected to thermite process. Is that clear? So it will give you an end product as manganese plus Al2O3. Directly don't subject pyrolusite to thermite process, otherwise this reaction mixture it might blast. Clear? Now you can even extract iron from or molten iron with the help of thermite process also. Is that clear? Any confusion in thermite process? Any doubt? So that I can move on towards reduction with the help of carbon. Most of the time we use carbon as reducing agent. Why? The very basic thing which we need to understand here. You see, in thermite process, what we call thermite process, it is basically the sacrificial reaction. Means in order to obtain one metal, we are sacrificing a more important metal only if it is necessary. Means if we have some other alternative. See, all of you are going to be engineer. The name itself indicates that you have to be ingenious. You have to be careful about the two basic things which are most important for an engineer. One is durability, second is economy. Even I will say that you should prefer the second point over the first one. You have to be very economic, as well as whatever you are doing or whatever things you are designing, they should be durable as well. For example, I'll tell you the difference between an engineer and a normal person. See, a house, it can be made by some mason himself, or some labor, or with the help of some labor you can also make one house, and it will be durable also, because normal life of concrete is 30 years. So for the next 30 years nothing will happen to that house. But doing that, if you are going for RCC and all, it may cost you, let's say, 1 crore rupees. The same house, it can be built with the help of civil engineer and some labor in a price of 50-60 lakhs rupees, let's say. So that is being economical. Durability is also there, as well as economy is also there. Both the house, they can stand up to 30 years. Means that reinforcement engineer, he knows how much sufficient amount of reinforcement is required. You might add some extra reinforcement. You think that it will be for more safety. They know the safety measure, engineers. That's what you have to do. You have to be very particular about finance also. Okay. So this Goldsmith aluminothermite process, it doesn't favor finance. It is not economical enough. Correct? Because you are sacrificing a more costly metal in order to obtain a cheaper one. Is that correct? So we need to find some cheaper alternative. See, market price of aluminium is more than 150 rupees per kg. While what is market price of coal? If I ask you, like 15-20 years back, if I remember, the market price of coal was half rupees per kg or 1 rupees per kg, like that. Now it might be 8 or 10 or 20 rupees, let's say. Hardly 20 rupees per kg, let's say. And in 1 kilogram of coal, more number of carbon atom will be there in comparison to 1 kilogram of aluminium. That we can define with the help of mole concept. In stoichiometry, I guess you might have gone through such kind of problems. Okay, so carbon, it also has a great affinity for oxygen combustion reactions. Correct. So now I will try to take carbon as an alternative for reduction of metal oxide, and I will try to figure out what kind of metal oxide can be reduced with the help of carbon. Okay, I will take example of carbon along with the iron oxide and zinc oxide, because for chromium and manganese, reduction with the help of carbon will be very difficult, and that too for aluminium and magnesium oxide or other alkaline earth metals. Why, how, that let's discuss. Okay, so here now I'll try to take this Ellingham diagram for carbon and other metals. Here let's say I take delta G versus T. First I will try to write some reactions and then I will move on. Let's say delta G versus T I will define later. Once let's take carbon as either graphite or anthracite or any form of carbon I am taking, plus O2, this is solid, right? Graphite plus O2 gas giving you CO2 gas, isn't that right? Delta H I write as minus 94.5 kilocalorie per mole. That is first reaction. Delta S, that will be almost 0, that I can write 1 mole of gas in left hand side, 1 mole of gas in right hand side. Any confusion, any doubt? Correct only. Then if I write carbon again, graphite plus half of O2 gas giving you carbon monoxide, delta H I write as minus 58.5 kilocalories per mole. Delta S, that will be what? Half mole of gas in the reactant side, 1 mole of gas in product side. Delta S, it is increasing, delta S is positive, isn't that right? Same thing I will write Fe solid plus half of O2 giving you FeO solid, delta H it will be a negative value, nearly if I write let's say minus 300-400 kilocalorie per mole, like that. Okay, any confusion, any doubt up to here? Just write these 3 reactions in your notebook quickly, so that I'll try to plot them on delta G versus temperature curve. Do it quickly. Done, I guess. I'll just clean this part, okay? Now let's say delta G versus T I want to plot. First I'd like to plot for formation of carbon dioxide. Delta S was nearly 0, slope of the line, it will be coming out to be 0 itself. Yes or no? Correct only. Let's say I write it for formation of carbon dioxide. Correct. Now if I take let's say for formation of iron oxide, it will be coming out in this manner. Let's say I take it further below in this manner. Let's say this is for CO2, for iron oxide I write like in this manner for FeO, okay, and that for carbon monoxide these scaling is not appropriate, but still you can understand, I guess, right? Let's say write in this manner, let's say, okay. Now most important thing, this temperature I write here as 983 Kelvin. This I write as 983 Kelvin. Any confusion, any doubt? I'll talk about this 983 Kelvin also. Clear? And different values I can write here, minus 58.5 here kilocalorie per mole, here minus 94.5 kilocalorie per mole, in this manner. These three curves, any confusion, any doubt? Here formation of carbon monoxide. At the same time, let's say I try to write zinc. For zinc also I'll try to define. And this temperature here I write as around 1200 Kelvin, okay. And this temperature we know that is 905 degrees centigrade. 905 degrees centigrade. You don't have to remember, but better if you remember, it will give you an extra advantage, okay. Now here we need to understand the concept. Okay, first I will start with this iron and carbon dioxide. See, this temperature is nearly 200-300 degrees centigrade. Now tell me, below 200-300 degrees centigrade, if in a container, if I have iron oxide and carbon, can carbon reduce iron oxide into iron along with the CO2 or CO? Along with formation of CO2 or CO, can iron oxide below 200-300 degrees centigrade, can we write in this manner? Will this be feasible? How we are going to figure out? With the help of Gibbs free energy change, delta G formation for let's say this temperature. If I take this temperature, now below this temperature, Gibbs free energy formation for FeO, iron oxide, is more negative at any temperature you check. Is that correct or not? In comparison to formation of CO2 or formation of CO. Is that correct? So this won't happen below 200-300 degrees centigrade. Carbon cannot reduce iron oxide by forming carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. Is that clear? Correct only. Now if I write a temperature in between, if temperature is greater than 300 degrees centigrade and less than 983 Kelvin. Now first let's talk about 983 Kelvin. Now below 983 Kelvin, below this 983 Kelvin temperature gives free energy formation for carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide. If I compare, which has more negative value, we can clearly see carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide, its stability, it doesn't decrease with increase in temperature, it remains equally stable. Delta G formation is constant. But below this temperature, formation of carbon monoxide is less favorable. Delta G is negative only. But first, if we are taking carbon and oxygen, let's say in one container below 983 Kelvin, if carbon and oxygen are there, first carbon dioxide will form, then carbon monoxide formation might take place. Clear? So if limited supply of oxygen is taken, this part which you have gone through for a long time, that carbon monoxide it forms. No, carbon monoxide it won't form below 983 Kelvin. First carbon dioxide only will form. Okay, yes, limited supply we will talk later. So if temperature is above 983 Kelvin, now what will happen? Delta G formation of carbon monoxide will become more negative in comparison to carbon dioxide. Correct? So stability of carbon monoxide, we can say it increases with the increase in temperature. So above 983 Kelvin, above 983 Kelvin, here I write above 983 Kelvin. If carbon and oxygen are taken in container, even if oxygen is present in excess, even if oxygen is present in excess, no formation of carbon dioxide will be there, only formation of carbon monoxide will be there, even if oxygen is present in excess. So at elevated temperature, carbon monoxide will form instead of carbon dioxide. Is that clear? Now let's come back again on this part. If we have taken iron oxide and carbon at a temperature range of 300 to 983 Kelvin, I'll just clean this part. Okay, so now what will happen? Temperature in between 300 to 983 Kelvin, we observe below this temperature carbon monoxide formation, it will be more favorable in comparison to carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, or even FeO. Any temperature you take, let's say you take this temperature, at this temperature which one is having more negative value of delta G? Carbon dioxide, then carbon monoxide, then iron oxide. Below this temperature, formation of carbon dioxide will be more favorable in comparison to iron oxide, in comparison to carbon monoxide. Any confusion, any doubt? So what will be the product in this temperature range? These reactions you are going to write by yourself. Okay, I am just explaining them, you try to write them. Okay, you go through the notes again when I will upload this lecture, go through it again and try to write these reactions. So what I can say, that carbon dioxide and iron will form, no formation of carbon monoxide. Is that clear? Any confusion, any doubt? Next case, if I take, let's say I take next case, if temperature greater than 983 Kelvin, if temperature is greater than 983 Kelvin, now above 983 Kelvin, FeO, CO2, CO, any temperature, let's say I take this temperature, out of these three, which has more negative value of gives free energy change for formation? Carbon monoxide. Is that clear? Means FeO, it will get reduced with the help of carbon by forming carbon monoxide. No carbon dioxide will form beyond 983 Kelvin. Is that clear? Iron will get reduced not by forming carbon dioxide. Previous case, iron was getting reduced by forming carbon dioxide. These different byproducts they are being asked in examination. That's how you predict the byproduct. Is that clear? Now above 983 Kelvin, now what will happen? Above 983 Kelvin, carbon monoxide and iron will be produced, no CO2 will be there. Is that clear? I'll come back on zinc oxide, but first let's write these three statements in the next part. So I'll just clean this and let's take, I'll write first case, temperature below 200 or 300 degrees centigrade, what will happen? Carbon cannot reduce iron oxide by forming either CO2 or carbon monoxide. Means Fe plus C, FeO plus C will be no reaction below 200-300 degrees centigrade. Second, temperature greater than 300 degrees centigrade but less than 983 Kelvin. I am not writing equals to 983, less than 983 Kelvin. Now what will happen? Carbon reduce FeO by forming carbon dioxide and iron as product. Means I can write the reaction like this: FeO plus C giving you Fe plus CO2. You can balance the reaction. Means in the temperature zone of this, in metallurgy, when blast furnace, you will see number of different reactions are there. You will be unable to remember all of those reactions, but you can define those reactions in this manner. Is that clear? So in a temperature zone of 300 degrees centigrade to 983 Kelvin, this reaction it will take place. Correct? Then third case, if I take third case, if temperature is greater than 983 Kelvin, if temperature is greater than 983 Kelvin, now what will happen? We can write carbon reduce iron oxide by forming carbon monoxide and iron. No carbon dioxide will be produced. No formation of carbon dioxide will be there above 983 Kelvin. So I can write FeO plus C giving you Fe plus CO. Is that clear? So different temperature zones, different products or different reactions will be there. Any confusion, any doubt? Is that clear to everyone? I guess there won't be any doubt. Now let's come back on zinc. See, 905 degrees centigrade, that will be boiling point of zinc, right? Here I can write 905 degrees centigrade. Now we say that again the same thing for zinc. I can write here, red part I will write formation of zinc oxide. Formation of zinc oxide we can write. So here I'd like to take for zinc here extraction of zinc is done with the help of Belgian process, where first zinc vapor will form, which is condensed to give zinc dust. Then again with the help of liquefaction and crystallization we obtain solid zinc. Okay, this part in detail we will discuss later on. Okay, so right now here again I will take 3 different cases. Case 1, temperature less than 1200 Kelvin. We can write carbon cannot reduce zinc oxide by forming either carbon dioxide or carbon monoxide. Means I can write ZnO plus C, no reaction will be there below temperature less than 1200 Kelvin. Is that clear? Any confusion, any doubt? Second part, I will write at temperature greater than 1200 Kelvin. At temperature greater than 1200 Kelvin. Now, above temperature greater than 1200 Kelvin, this is 1200 Kelvin. Formation of carbon monoxide is more favored in comparison to formation of zinc oxide in comparison to carbon dioxide. So, in one container, if we are having zinc oxide plus carbon, what will be product? Zinc followed by carbon monoxide. No formation of carbon dioxide will be there. Is that clear? I guess so. So we can write carbon reduce zinc oxide by forming zinc vapor and carbon monoxide. So I can write the reaction in this manner: zinc oxide solid plus carbon graphite, you can write, or I'll just write solid, giving you zinc in vapor phase, because this reaction it is taking place at 1200 Kelvin, which is greater than 905 degrees centigrade, that is boiling point of zinc. So zinc will be obtained in gaseous state along with carbon monoxide in gaseous state. Make one star mark on this particular process. Let's make one star mark on this particular process and this particular statement. I suppose extraction of zinc is also clear to everyone. Any confusion, any doubt? Correct. Now if I take this diagram of metal oxides once again, let me clean this particular part. Here, let's say I just clean it again, and let's say write in zinc oxide, iron oxide, and let's say I write for carbon monoxide. First I will write for carbon dioxide, for carbon dioxide I can write in this manner. Okay, let's say for carbon dioxide. And now if I want to write for carbon monoxide, here comes carbon monoxide. I'll just make it a bit more clear, this diagram. I'll first take carbon monoxide, this temperature is, I'll write 1200 Kelvin. Let's clear this Goldsmith aluminothermite process. Okay, this temperature is 1200 Kelvin. And now let's take carbon dioxide. 983 Kelvin will be somewhere here. this will be carbon dioxide, and let's say this will be iron oxide, something like this. Now for what kind of species we can use carbon as reducing agent? Now carbon, it can reduce iron oxide, yes. It can reduce zinc oxide. For chromium and manganese, due to their crystal structure, it cannot reduce. Can we use it for aluminium oxide? Let's say if I take aluminium oxide here, Al2O3, if I extend this curve, they are going to meet at around some temperature, let's say 2500 Kelvin or like that, some temperature beyond 2500 Kelvin. This is not an exact figure, okay? This is not an exact figure. So beyond 2500 Kelvin, this carbon, it will be able to reduce aluminium oxide. Is it feasible to obtain such temperature or to maintain such temperature? The answer will be no. It would require a huge amount of energy, and producing such temperature economically, that is not feasible. I told you that being an engineer, we have to be very careful about economy as well. Is that clear? Any confusion, any doubt? Correct. So can we reduce aluminum oxide with the help of carbon? No. Means even not by forming carbon dioxide. This carbon dioxide, it will meet this aluminum curve somewhere at around, let's say 3500 Kelvin or 4000 Kelvin. So that is not feasible. If it is not feasible for aluminum oxide, will it be feasible for this? Will also cross around after 2000 Kelvin. So for magnesium also it is very difficult. So if it is difficult for aluminum, magnesium, will it be feasible for calcium, potassium, sodium, or any alkali or alkaline earth metal? The answer will be no. So what I can write here by making one star mark: reduction of highly reactive metals which lie on the top of electrochemical series, or here I can write such as first A group, second A group, and aluminium, with carbon is not feasible, right? It is not feasible, and not I'll say not easy, or it won't happen. Easily. So we do not use carbon for reduction of alkali and alkaline earth metal and aluminium. We cannot reduce these metal oxide with the help of carbon. So for these metal oxide, I write, for these electrolysis is used for reduction. Okay, so here we are saying that pyrometallurgy of these metals is not possible with the help of carbon. Simple as that. Is it clear to everyone? I suppose there is no doubt, no confusion. If it is there, just let me know. Clear? So for these metals, another process will be required, which is electrolysis. Clear? This whole part of Ellingham diagram, this diagram itself here, this diagram, it is called as the Ellingham diagram. This diagram, it is called as Ellingham diagram.
सर
हाँ
सर इसके बाद वाला जो ग्राफ में था ना,
हाँ
983 केल्विन पर क्या होगा, मतलब कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड और कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड दोनों सेम बनेगा।
हाँ at 983 Kelvin, what we are saying that this delta G formation of see here, if I take that graph itself here, at 983 Kelvin, delta G formation of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide is coming out to be same. So
Yes, sir.
in one container at 983 Kelvin, if I take carbon plus oxygen, it will give you both carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide in some proportion depending upon their stoichiometry. Both will form. It's not like only carbon dioxide will form or only carbon monoxide will form. But below 983 Kelvin, if I take carbon and oxygen, only carbon dioxide will form. Remaining
Yes, sir.
carbon, it will remain unused. Because carbon dioxide, it doesn't support combustion. And above 983 Kelvin, only carbon monoxide will form.
कार्बन मोनोऑक्साइड।
Is that
सर
clear?
लेकिन 983 केल्विन पर मतलब दोनों सेम
Bo-
नहीं बनेगा।
both will form. The amount, it will depend upon the stoichiometry, not on thermodynamics. It won't
Okay,
depend
sir.
upon thermodynamics. Thermodynamically, they will form, the driving force to form carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide will be same. Correct. Now the amount, it will depend upon the capacity or stoichiometry. Means now excess of chocolates are there, let's say. You and your younger brother, again, once again. Now who will eat more chocolate? The one who has more capacity. Simple as that.
Yes, sir.
Now it doesn't depend upon power. That power part, it will come into the action when number of chocolates are limited. Understood this concept? So this
Yes,
amount of carbon dioxide and carbon monoxide, it will depend upon the stoichiometry,
Stoichiometry.
not on thermodynamics. At 983 Kelvin, below 983 Kelvin and above 983 Kelvin, it will depend upon thermodynamics.
Thermodynamics.
Is that clear?
Yes, sir.
Any confusion, any doubt? So I suppose this Ellingham diagram is clear. Now again today you will go through this Ellingham diagram once again with the help of NCERT. Is it clear? And why everyone is not there? I don't understand. Anyway, see, if I'll start thermochemistry now, see, we don't have that much time. So in next 10-15 minutes, we won't be able to discuss the whole thermochemistry. So better I will start thermochemistry from next class. Okay. So just go through this Ellingham diagram once again, as I asked you.